Hi, this is Lydia Jakovac from the Rossland Museum. Today is Thursday, the 27th of March, 2014. And right now I'm here with Mr. Bill Newman in his home here in Rossland in Columbia Avenue. And thank you, Bill, for being with us today. And do you agree to being recorded today?
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. And I hear that you have a lot of stories to tell us. So why don't you tell us, first of all, where you were born and a little bit about your parents and a little bit about your background.
I was born August 22nd, 1938, down the street here in the old hospital that's on the side of the auxiliary building downtown. I was born there, and the part going this way, what we still refer to as the new hospital, even though they added this way, but they were building that when I was born. My mom was Estelle. My dad was Morley, and he worked at Kaminko.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
No, I didn't have any brothers, and I was 9 years old when I had a sister, Marjorie. I remember Grandpa Jack Hackney, the hardware store. I must have been around maybe 5 or 4, somewhere in there. I couldn't say for sure. When I would go there once in a while to the hardware store, he would put me to work straightening stock, like plumbing stock and whatnot, out in the little bins. Give me something to do, I remember that. And Grandma Rose, who was my Uncle Fred and my mom, and my Aunt Helen was Grandpa's first wife, Helen, and she was a nurse, and she was working in Trail. And when the flu hit, it was the Spanish flu, I think it was.
Is that like 19...
or 18 or somewhere.
Oh.
Way back there, it killed a lot of people. Her, Grandma Helen, and Grandpa Jack were taking food to the different people that were sick and whatnot. And Grandma Helen was expecting, and she got the flu real bad, and whoever the doctor was at the time told Grandpa, "You've got 2 choices. You lose your wife and you lose your baby, or I can take the baby." So he had to make that hard decision way back there. And the doctor took my Aunt Helen. He named her after her mom, Helen. And the nuns over here, according to my mom, at the hospital, took a dresser drawer, cotton battened in it, and that was where they kept my Aunt Helen. And not around the late 80s, early 90s, they started a mall walk club. You do the whole circuit of the mall inside, but not the businesses, starting at 7. And I met an older lady there. She realized who I was, so she told me. She said, "I lived 1 block up on Georgia, where the corner is, and I didn't know at the time, and my mom was nursing, and this person would come every day and get a brown bag, and away he would go. And he would take it to the nuns at the hospital. I think that's what they called wet nursing. I'm not too sure. But they were using this milk way back then from this lady that was telling me this from her mother. And then Grandpa was having problems, and I don't know who it was, told him, "You've got 2 sister-in-laws over in England. Why don't you send for them?" So he did. So Rose Molyneux and Betty Molyneux, that was Grandma Hackney's maiden name, came out to help Grandpa out. And then, lo and behold, Grandpa Hackney married Rose, his sister-in-law. And they had two girls, Amy and Marjorie. I do not know which order it was. And I don't know if it was 1945 or 1946 when Grandma Rose and Grandpa Jack moved to Nanaimo. And the thing that I want out there about the Star Theatre, yeah, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of that after the fire, that big cement upright column. That was the projection booth made out of concrete. And the insurance companies in that told Grandpa Jack, no, you can build it out of wood. There's nothing wrong with that. And he said no. He made it out of concrete. So lo and behold, there it was after the fire. And you go to the drugstore, when you go to the pharmacy counter, on the end, you got the stairs going up to where they do their work. And there's a cupboard here, and there's a picture of that column there. After the fire, they had big shot people from the insurance companies coming to take a look at it. And that was the beginning of the cement projection booth. Grandpa Jack was a wonderful person. Grandma Rose was so sweet, tiny thing. I think it was 1946 or 51. We went down in 1946 and in 1951, but one of those, I think it probably was 46. He told me the night before, I'm getting you up early in the morning and we're going for a walk. He walked me all the way down to the wharfs to show me, and there was this big, tall ship, the sailboat.
Down here in Trail?
No, this is in Nanaimo.
Nanaimo Wharfs. Okay.
Nanaimo, and beautiful. I don't know whether they were there to load lumber or to load coal, because they were doing both in that area. But it was so beautiful. Just really, really beautiful.
So did you live in Nanaimo for a period of time?
No, just on holidays, and about 3 months in 1958 when I went to the vocational school to learn to be a heavy equipment operator.
So tell me, did you go to school here?
Yes. Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about your school life and what school you went to? And
I went to the second McLean school, not the one that's there now. The previous one up on, I think up in the area of 4th, burnt down. Then they built the one I went to out of brick and everything else, and it was arson that took it out in sometime in the 80s. It was a kid, but I started grade 1, and we had a health nurse who figured she knew better, and she had already gotten a letter that I was not to have the diphtheria shot, which was adverse effects, and I got pulled out of grade 1. And I know for a fact that nurse was talking to somebody in the office of the clinic and saying about, not true, that doesn't happen, all this, blah. This nurse really thought she was, I knew her in later years, thought she was better than now. But anyways, Doc Topliff came out from what my mom was telling me, and he heard her talking like that. And he hauled her into his office, and all hell hit the fan.
So you did not get your diphtheria?
No, she gave it to me.
Against the wishes?
the letter. But I was grade 6, and I got the grade 6. In grade 6, my teacher came from Kelowna, Sylvia. I can't remember her maiden name. And at Easter, she started in September, And then the next Easter, she married my Uncle Fred Hackney. So I was getting razzed because the teacher was my aunt. And then I was in amongst the, I don't know, a couple, 3 grades of grade 7. There was a junior, senior high that now is Rossland Summit School. And I was in the first grade 7 groups that went there. And I wasn't that great in school because when I had started school the first few years, somebody got the bright idea to do away with the phonetics system. And I could hardly write, I could hardly read. And but when I was in the high school, once I used to go to the library, which was in the basement of the courthouse by then. And this single lady, older lady, Olga Othling, very nice person. I'd go in and look around and whatnot. And one day she came up to me, a very, very nice lady, and she says, "Bill, you cannot read, can you?" And I said, "No." "Okay, I'm going to ask you this question. Do you have about yay wide by yay long and about yay thick?" Most homes had that type of dictionary. And I said, "Yes." "Okay." She took me to the kids section. Now she said, "With this book and the dictionary, and you start looking the words up." And that's how I learned to read and spell. And we had a teacher, she was single, an older teacher. And I had to repeat grade 10 because when my dad died, my marks hit the bottom. So I repeated grade 10. But she would take a whole bunch of us on her own time. Miss Varco was her name. At 7 o'clock in the morning, from grade 7 up to grade 12, to help us with all the English and all that type of stuff. But I was asked to join, and back then the high schools had Army Cadet Corps, and I joined the Army Cadet Corps. And that gave me a solid foundation of being in the Cadet Corps.
And what age range was that?
It was from grade 7 to grade 12.
All the way through?
Yep. And I got my grade 10 the second time, and I went back to do my grade 11, and we got a new principal. He was, as the saying goes, he suffered from the short-ass syndrome because it was so close to the ground. And the vice principal had worked with my mom for my courses, and this new principal said, "No, you're taking this," that, like, give me French and all that. I couldn't take it. I told my mom, "I can't take it, I'm quitting." Well, back then, grade 10 was good, but I different jobs and whatnot, and say I ended up in September of 1956 as second generation volunteer. And
so this was at grade 11. You went into the volunteer firefighting.
Well, I had quit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you became a volunteer firefighter?
I was 18.
18?
Yep. And he was only one of the paid firemen at the time, Spud Martin. And Spud and his wife Irene became like big brother and big sister to me, plus a couple of the other paid firemen were real good to me. And then I met my wife.
So before you tell us about your wife, just interested in, did you get to fight any fires? Can you tell us about some of those?
I don't know if I dare tell you my nickname. They called me Nozzle because I'd grab the hand line and I'd be the first one in the building with a hose to impress the girls.
That would be very impressive in your uniform. And did you have a uniform in those days?
The only time you used the uniform, they scrounged one up for me because we had to patrol the arena because the guys would go in under the bleachers, sneak smokes.
Okay.
And I used it whenever there was a parade. Okay, that's one of the buildings for my last fire, the Rossland Minor.
The Rossland Minor.
Yeah.
The Minor as it looked prior to its destruction. Early Sunday, the Minor building was built in 1895. Fire swallows Kootenay Minor. And what year was this? It says Thursday, May 1973.
Yep.
The Kootenay Minor, page 9.
But,
I see.
This used to be, just changed hands to Gaston Herdick for Rossland Realty. This used to be Davies' business. Alan Davies, the garbage.
Oh, okay.
And the fire was started at the back of the Rossland Minor by an employee.
Wow.
Who he wanted to have a story. And he's a little bit wacko. One of the paid firemen and I went up. Now this had the high half-pitch roof attic. And we had chopped through 4 false ceilings.
Wow.
Until we hit the original ceiling. And Spud Martin had become fire chief by then. And he sent one of the other volunteers up to get us out. Well, you came up the stairs facing that way, downtown. And came up the stairs. And then you turn to go in. And he says, "Get out now." And the two of us grabbed the hand line and the tools, our axe and that. And as we turned to go to the stairway, there was a window. And the Davies had a vacant lot because he was in the auto salvage business. And the building on that side of the lot, the whole roof was on fire. And without a word of a lie, the two of us had just hit the sidewalk when the roof caved in.
Wow. So you escaped death?
Yes.
You would have been
Yes.
crushed.
We would have been crushed, burnt to death.
Burnt to death.
Yeah. That was on Mother's Day, too.
Mother's Day.
They started treating me then for what they thought was deep depression. And then in September that year, just to say a few days apart from when I joined 17 years before, I had to go see Spud because the doctor told me, "No, you got to give it up." And yet, I still got the red truck here.
Right.
And Spud used to say to me, because they just lived through the alley behind the church on First, he said, "Bill, when both of us die, they're going to be putting us in the ground, and the red truck's going to go by, lights and siren, and we're going to pop out of that casket."
That'd be perfect.
But
so you still have a passion for the fire trucks?
Yes, a great passion. That is from
those days of being a volunteer?
No, this is recent.
This is recent, but your passion is from those days.
But this is from Spud's son, Terry Martin, who's the regional district fire chief. Okay. And he looks after me real well. And
fantastic.
Same with Derek Wolf, who works at Ferrero's up here in Trail, and he took the ambulance crew chief job from Terry when he got promoted to deputy fire chief a few years ago. But prior to that, he'd gotten on as a full-time fireman in the Holland Trail. Mm-hmm. And he said the same thing. "You are a true fireman." And I put it away, but just the turnout coat, both him and Derek, I had paint. It was for when I could snow blow. I had to put on the back of it, painted. We ate the smoke. I am old leather lungs.
Leather lungs.
That's the category. And I read a number of books that were written by doctors and other people on the New York Fire Department. No, I'm lucky I'm still here. Because a lot, mind you, they had more fires there, But a lot of them would maybe get to 15 years service and they'd have to quit, and then they died almost as fast.
And you said 17?
17 years
You were
I
there
had.
17 years.
Yeah. And then, as I say, they treated me for what they thought was deep depression. And then in the early 80s, I had slipped at work and I got sciatica nerve in my left leg. And my doctor at the other clinic where City Hall is now, he was away, and it was a locum that was there. And this was in the summer. There's nothing wrong with you. You just want me to sign your sick forms so you can enjoy the summer. So this was a Friday, so I was off because I couldn't work. And Agnes and my daughter Rita, my youngest daughter, were canning peaches, and she needed stuff from Super Value, was where the hardware store was. Used to be Super Value, but Ferrero's. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll drive Rita down and she can go get it, because I didn't want to walk. So I'm sitting there while Rita went in, and across the street where the clinic is now, I looked up over there, and I wonder. So I brought Rita home. I phoned down to that clinic, and I said, an older lady was their secretary. It was Gary Jenkins, Andrea's dad, and Brian O'Flanagan. And May said, you get down here right now, Bill, and you'll see Gary Jenkins. So I went to Gary, and then to hell with my other doctor. And in 1985, Gary said to me one day, you don't have depression. I said, well, I'm getting treated for it. No. So we had this Dr. Ghosh, East Indian. He's just retired in the past few years. He should have been teaching some world big medical thing. His wall was loaded with diplomas. And anyways, I went to him. Back then you went to the hospital and they'd draw your blood. They had them take enough blood out to do 45 different tests. And what it wasn't depression. And I was on an antidepressant, trifluoperazine, and I was seeing the local head shrink every 3 weeks back then. First time I went in after Dr. Ghosh had sent the report to him, he was furious. The next 3 weeks when I went, he says, thanks to you. He said, I talked to the big boy of that drug company that made the trifluoperazine, and I had side effects that they manufactured didn't even know about. So he said, thanks to you, you helped others. A couple of days after New Year's in 86, I slipped at work on ice, and I buggered my right leg up. So then I went on compensation. And then thanks to the compensation doctor and Nelson, who was a yo-yo, I had to go back to rehab in October of 87, and I was in February of 88. They took Kaminko and Warfield plant area. All of a sudden, 18 of us are getting sick, and they took 18 of us, a few at a time, down to first aid, and I got what I thought was the flu. And I took a couple of weeks holiday, and I went back on February the 29th, and the foreman in rehab, he saw me come in. He says, okay, Bill, you don't move from the chair at the table until Gordy, who was above the foreman, comes up. And he took Gordy aside and talked to him. And then Gordy had me walk around the inside of rehab, and I was like this. So anyways, I used all of my sick leave. It went 6 months when it ran out, and I had to apply through the government. And I had the right person at Local 480. I came out one day because the guy that was supposed to help us, they're going to fire you. And this Tom, who come here from Sudbury, had been working with me, knew me quite well, and took one look, and he said, "What's going on?" And I started to say something, and they said, "Shut up." And we went a half block away from the Union Hall. He said, "There's too many ears in this building." And I told him, he said, "You come back tomorrow afternoon, and this Doug Swanson, the president, and a bunch of us will be there to talk to you." And I went back, and they gave me this they had this Dave Cox, who I had known as well. He come from Sudbury. Well, he was a university-trained journalist, and
So they kind of thought something was going on. You had an injury at work, and then you started wobbling around. So something was affecting you at Kaminko? Is that what you're saying?
Well, found out later.
Okay.
But
all right. So we're still at Kaminko.
Yeah.
We're talking about Kaminko.
So anyways, I think it was a Friday. So I went back. We all went, and they told us to go to number 1 lunchroom.
So it was you and the other 18 of you?
All of us. And then they decided, "Oh, you can go in," and I, no damn way, because you got no answers. So I went out to it was a different gatehouse then to what's there today, and I phoned the safety rep for the union. He says, "Bill, I'll be up there in 5 minutes." Well, Kaminko fire chief, who I knew, was there because security was also underneath him besides the fire department. And he said to me, "Bill, I could have a 10-mile long pole, and I could not touch what it was." They did not even tell me, and it was buried that quick. And I found out from this John years later, one of the ladies that was there with us, she was in the tailor shop, she died from cancer, another guy died from heart. It was buried. But in the battle, to get from UI to the proper Canadian disability, Dave wrote first appeal when they rejected it. He wrote the second, they rejected it. Then the third, which they rejected. And the federal government generally only gives you 3 appeals. And Dave says, "I'm going for 4. He went for 4. And I had to go to Kelowna. And I saw this elderly doctor in Kelowna who was the doctor that gave commercial pilots in this part of BC their physicals. And I had a big, big envelope from Gary Jenkins. He looked me, went through stuff. He says, "Bill, I can tell you what it is. I know what it is, but I can't help you get anything." He says, "It's from your 17 years of eating smoke, because we didn't have air packs or anything. We had a mask that was good for 5%, all gases." He said, "You're walking toxic chemical waste dump." So that's my firefighting.
That's what you get for being a volunteer firefighter.
Well, not even the pay. It's even worse today.
How did you and your wife meet?
Well, we had a matchmaker down at the mall downtown. Used to be the bowling alley in the basement, where you went in the doors. That side of that building was a restaurant and a hall. The other side, where the brew shop and that is, the other things today, was Save More grocery store. For 3 years, I delivered groceries for Super Value. I worked for Waltz Transfer. I delivered for Super Value. The Save More shop, they changed names, but I'll say Save More or Shop Easy. Delivered groceries. Wright's Meat Market. I delivered meat twice a day for them. Wise's hardware store. And it was Len Catalano. He called me. He says, "Bill, come here. I've got a new girl here I want you to meet." So I went over. And back then, always had shirts that had the tail tucked into your pants. And my wife, Agnes. And it was an open freezer this way, and she was breaking the ice out, and Len introduced us, and three of us were talking. Agnes said something, and I smart-assly answered it. A couple of girls on the till said, "That's not right, Bill." When I turned to them, Agnes took a big chunk of ice and put it down between my shirt and my back.
Right, that was a nice introduction.
Well, Len, I guess, knew what he was doing.
So, and then, did you have any children?
Yeah, I got 4.
4? Can you tell me their names?
I got Lori, who just turned half a century. Then my son Arthur. Yeah, Lori was born in 64. Arthur was born in 65. Then I had Rita. She's our angel now, our saint. And her son and her daughter. I had to quit driving. You're looking at a miracle. Mm-hmm. A true miracle. Because on 8:30 Friday, January the 6th, 2012, I was finished eating my piece of toast and bang. I grabbed my nitro because I had 2 small ones in 2003. 10 minutes later, bang. Used my nitro again. I went and laid down, and I started sweating. Agnes was still in bed, and I said, "I'm calling the ambulance." And just before the first responders and the ambulance come through the door, bang, number 3. And Derek Wolf told Agnes and my daughter Rita that he couldn't figure it out. I had no other symptoms, like the arms or anything.
Just sudden.
The air vac me to Kelowna. I was on the table. They were getting ready. They're starting to proceed so they could put a stent in. And I heard the cardiologist scream, 100% oxygen. Now they flooded my lungs. And then the big one hit. It was like I got kicked by an elephant. Man, the worst upchucking I ever had. I lost 80% of my heart. And with flooding my lungs with oxygen, I got pulmonary edema. And they only gave me an hour to live. But they put a Y stent doing the work of my heart.
So one? Or
it's
all the arteries?
It's a Y stent.
A Y stent.
Yep. And thanks to, I take one in the morning and one at supper time, the same pill, and I have another pill in the morning, and 3 at lunchtime, and at supper with that other one, I have another pill. And the only way I can describe it, and it's one of the miracle drugs, it's called Carvedilol, and it's approximately the size of a mustard.
Wow.
And increased, according to Dr. Kizak, the Polish heart specialist we have here, it increased my capacity to 25. But also,
that's amazing.
Pray power.
Amen.
Pray. I had prayers from Spain, believe it or not.
The power of prayer.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And another thing, too, was my youngest granddaughter in September came in, and she says, honestly, Papa, I had nothing the previous September to do with this. Day I graduate, June the 8th next year, which was our anniversary. And I'm there. I gotta make Carissa's.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, I just remembered something else you were talking about, the trains in Rossland. We no longer have trains here.
No.
Which is a shame.
Oh,
we do have something coming by, the fertilizer plant there.
Yeah, those are the diesel electric.
The diesel electric. But you were saying something before about a different type of train.
The steam engines.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
We had to walk by them when they would be up. When we were going to high school, and there was either a path above, or in the winter, we'd go alongside them while they were in the caboose, having their, as they called it, their cup of mud and their lunch. The mud was the coffee,
yes.
and we referred to the trains, steam engines, as hissing dinosaurs.
The hissing dinosaurs.
No, they were beautiful.
And did you ever travel on them?
Yes.
Where did you go on them?
I came back a couple of times from Nanaimo. We had to go by boat, CPR boat to Nanaimo 53 times, 46, 51, and 56. Traveled on them.
So then you took the train back?
The passenger train would go through Castlegar.
Through Castlegar.
And then on east, and it would come west that same way.
So you had to come from Nanaimo, you travelled to Castlegar, and then from Castlegar to Trail?
Trail by bus.
By bus.
Yeah.
And then was that the time of the train that came back up Rossland? Was it?
No, I think it was the early 50s that they started bringing the diesel. But
okay, early 50s.
A few of us, I think there was 3 of us, we were lucky enough, we would go up and we wanted to see these new engines. Mm-hmm. And all of us, hey, boys, come on in. And they'd be doing the switching. And then they said, where do you live? And we would, they went around this way and they come out across the highway. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll give you a ride down to the highway. And then when they tore the tracks out, I was up on where they went through the rock cut. I don't know if you know where Kelly Campbell's apartments are, on 2nd, before you turn right on the T intersection to come up Butte. But that rock cut, I was up, I had Lori, my oldest, with me, and the engineer was the train, and I was up on the sloping bank, and the engineer said, pass me your daughter and come on up.
Oh, wow.
Wow. But Fort Steele, a couple of times we've been there, and I rode on their steam engine. The Force Museum, a number of times, in Duncan on the island. They're beautiful machines.
I've got to get out there. So tell us, did you take your kids skiing up on Red Mountain at all? Do you remember anything about that time?
When we got married in 63, I started Cominco, I think it was Easter Monday in 61. I got on construction, but when we got married in 63, I skied that spring, and we got married in June. And, of course, we got in the family way and didn't have that great a medical if I was to break,
So your kids didn't go skiing either?
Oh, they went skiing.
Oh, they went skiing,
yeah,
yes.
They went skiing. Over here where my mom and stepfather were living at the time, where I used to start skiing too, the kids would go over there with the skis, and then they'd end up on the ski hill and whatnot. They skied it.
So your parents, where did they come from?
Oh,
were they immigrants, of course?
No.
They were born here?
Born here.
Oh. Okay.
My mom was the first Hackney daughter. And then, of course, what I was saying about my Aunt Helen. This is the Rossland boarding house, Columbia Kootenai Mines.
And what was the boarding house for children?
For the miners.
For the miners. Oh, okay.
This was my dad's mother, Henrietta First, F-U-R-S-T. They came up here from Colville, and they ran the bunkhouse. And this would have been my dad's grandparents. And this was one of his aunts. And this uncle here, my cousin in Alberta sent me this. She was from Trail. Johnny, he died about the age of 16 from diabetes. And this is my dad's uncle, Lou First, and believe it or not, he's 3 years younger than my dad. And then they all went back to Colville, southeast of Colville, to the homestead at Bear Creek, which now is the Little Pond Array Wildlife Reserve. And part of that area, I don't know if they use it anymore or not, but at one time the military pilots had to go to survival school and learn to survive, became part of it.
Oh, neat.
And my dad's dad, my grandfather Newman, now I don't know if this is the right name. Way back, they sent kids out from England to work for people, and I think they called them, I don't know, I think it was pittance kids or something.
And what did they do? What kind of work?
Well, wherever they sent them, they was basically child labor.
Okay. From England?
Yeah.
You didn't have enough children here to do that?
Well, I guess in England they wanted to get rid of them. I don't know. Don't know too much. But according to my mom, when the war was on in Africa, these boys that were sent out here, I guess by then they had maybe become men. I don't. If they went back to England and joined the army and to fight in the war, they would have whatever this was lifted off of them.
Okay.
No, so that's what he did. And then, according to my cousin Lorraine, who sent me this from, she, as I say, raised in Trail, but her mom, Laura, was one of my dad's sisters, and then my dad had another sister, Grace. But she said apparently after he fought in the war, he went back to England and raised supreme hell with his parents. And never looked back.
Never looked back, boy.
And he came out here. He was working in the mines. And if I remember right, he was one of the ones that was blackballed for forming the union.
Oh, okay.
So he didn't get back in the mine. But then he got working for the city of Rossland and became foreman. But I said, one thing I remember about him is the day of the funeral I could have been 4, which would have been 1942 or maybe 5 or I don't know, at 3 if I would have remembered. But my Uncle Jack Molyneux, who was Grandpa Hackney's brother-in-law, looked after his daughter Joan and myself. But another thing with the Hackneys, besides Grandpa Hackney bringing his 2 sister-in-laws out, Rose and Betty, I don't know just when it was, he brought his 2 brother-in-laws out, Jack and Ted. And they both got on at West Kootenai Power and Light Company. And Uncle Ted ended up being one of the foremen for substation maintenance. And Uncle Jack, he was a lineman. And their brother-in-law, Alf Jewell, who married Aunt Betty, my mom's Aunt Betty, he was the foreman, and they have done where they used to have to go up the poles, what called dishwashing. They had to wash the insulators, and Uncle Jack went up, and the person that they just had the phones that they used, from the substations and that. The person that was responsible for disconnecting the power to that line made a mistake and did the wrong pole, and Uncle Jack got, I remember he had his chest, he survived.
He survived.
But Uncle Alf went up to rescue Uncle Jack, and Uncle Alf didn't survive.
Didn't survive.
And I remember my mom saying it was old Doc Topliff in the hospital up here, and he started the hemorrhage because he was all burnt.
Oh,
and
not good.
my mom said, the top of stuffed the pillow in there and kept the pressure on.
Yeah.
And he saved Uncle Jack.
Wow.
And I remember as a kid, old Doc Topliff, I was just old enough to remember, and my dad was in bed for the longest time. Old Doc Topliff in the hospital here, he scraped something off my dad's heart sac. He was a old doctor from England.
Well, you've had such an interesting history here. I know that every time I come and interview people, there's always 100 more stories that they could tell us.
Yes.
But we have to say thank you, Bill, so much for your time and sharing your life history here with us. And, if you have any more stories, just give me a call and we'll make some more series.
My wife, I dearly miss it. And she forced herself because she got in 1972, it's snowing again, 1972 or 73, she became a Tupperware dealer.
It was pretty popular in North America.
She was for 30 years, and 25 of those 30, she was in the top 20. And all of what I had to go through health-wise, it saved us from being sunk. But she had the most beautiful French accent. She was French Canadian.
Oh, French Canadian.
Oh, and she forced herself to get rid of it because of know how mean people can be?
Yes, I know. Being Australian.
Yeah, and one of our first dates, she knows I told you this, I'll probably get it shot. One of our first dates, we got into just a slight little bit of argument, and I said to her, you French Canadians are all the same. But I was driving. I don't know where we were going. But anyways, and she turns to me and, I'll have you know. No, not French Canadian. You frogs are all the same.
Oh,
that's
okay.
What it was.
Frogs, yes.
Yeah. And she turns to me. I'm not a frog. I'll have you know I'm a lily pad hopper.
Oh, she had a good sense of humor.
Oh, she sometimes, we'd have groups of people or whatever, and there'd be something, and it would come out of her.
And where did your wife come from? You said she's French Canadian.
She was born in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan. When did she come over here? When she was?
They were in the early 40s.
Right.
And this is...
So what brought her here, though?
Her dad came out here to work.
At Kaminko?
Yeah.
Right.
But this, I say, and others will say the same thing. There's a map of your life way up there from the beginning, And way, way back in elementary school, our mothers, a whole bunch of us, because there's all kinds of us kids, we were told to go over here, down Leroy, and then down Georgia to the house on the corner on the right-hand side where Kootenai intercepts to make sure this boy gets to McLean School. So a bunch of us got together and went down, and all of a sudden, what are we getting ourselves into? They speak funny.
Oh.
We didn't know anything about the French language. And it was her brother. He was the oldest.
Her brother. Oh.
And that's the first time that I met Agnes, because she was just about a year and a half. She wasn't ready for school yet. But,
wow.
Wow. It's funny how things work.
Funny things, coincidences. But thank you once again, Bill.
You're quite welcome.
You're very generous with your time with us. And so thank you on behalf of the museum and everybody else who goes to the website and